Hi everybody, Chef Jim. So this is going to be a little short video on equipment and tools that we're going to be using in the bake shop. So I've assembled kind of most of my basic hand tools, and I'm just going to go around a little bit and we're going to talk about each one briefly. But you should have something very similar to what I have here. And as we go around and talk about them, I'll let you know, what kind of acceptable substitutes there may be for something if you don't have anything in particular. So we'll start down here. This is a Silpat. So a Silpat is a silicone mat and it is heat resistant. It is not a cutting board. We've had that mistake happen a couple of times in class, so don't cut on it. But Silpats are really good for items that tend to stick on pans. We use them for cookies, we use them for Florentines and things that have a high sugar content that could ordinarily stick to a sheet pan. So the nice thing about Silpats is you can use them over and over and over again, and they clean up really quite easily. So next we have a couple examples of rolling pins. This is the big rolling pin that I have. I go to the big rolling pin when I have very heavy doughs to do. And by heavy doughs, I'm talking about next week we're going to start learning how to do puff pastry and Danish. And those are laminated doughs. And those are fairly heavy doughs. We have butter in those. So you need to kind of get up over your rolling pin and roll it with some might and putting some weight on it. In a commercial bakery, we would have a dough sheeter, and we have one at the Culinary Center, and that's what it's for. It's mostly for working with those laminated doughs. But we don't have dough sheeters at home, and I don't have a dough sheeter at home, so I just grab the biggest rolling pin that I have. Then for everyday use and for tarts and pies, this is my go-to rolling pin. It's a medium-sized rolling pin. I like them a little bit bigger, but that's okay. It fits my table space. It's still big enough that I can wrap doughs around it like pie doughs and then transport them somewhere. So a little rolling pin like that. This rolling pin is a small rolling pin. You might use that for tortillas, or you might use that for gyuzas or the wrappers if you're doing some Chinese dumplings. This really doesn't have a whole lot of practicality in where we're going to be going in the bake shop. However, if that's all you have, it's better than nothing. I have used, in a pinch, wine bottles. So try to find like a Zinfandel bottle, has straight sides. So if you can find a Zin bottle, that's great. Chardonnay bottles tend to be round and they're not flat and they don't work so well. So there's a Chef Jim tip right there. All right, so these are spatulas. These are, sometimes we call them cake spatulas, but they're used for a number of things. I use especially this spatula right here. It's very flexible and it's pretty big. When I'm rolling out pie dough and the dough wants to stick to the table, or I've gotten distracted and something happens and I get called away and I come back and the dough's stuck to the table, I'll use one of those to get underneath the dough and I won't tear up the dough. I can rescue the dough even if it's stuck to the table pretty well. So we use those for that, for getting cakes out of pans, for decorating cakes, obviously, but it's nice to have a couple of spatulas, one offset, this one, and one straight, this one. So here I have my sifter. I have this one. I actually have one that's a little bit bigger. If you have one that's bigger, make sure you have a bowl that's big enough to accommodate it. Then, of course, all kinds of bowls of various sizes. I have bowls from that size, and right now I have, you see over here, I have my mise en place for one of my next demos. So I have some of my little bowls already in use over there. Measuring devices. So here we have, on the left, we have this little one, which is nice. That's for liquids. I can pour liquids in it and I can see from the top the measurements, or I can see from the sides. And it's good for small amounts like vanilla and things like that. And then this one is a little bit bigger. This one is actually a quart size. And again, over here, I have my pint size one, but it's already in use. So I have a big one, a middle one, and then a small one. And these are all for liquids. Then for dry, I have a full set of measuring cups and my measuring spoons. Now my measuring spoons, they go down to, what is it? Can you read that? I can't. Very small. Smidgen, it says. So I've had this set forever. I like the set. It's stainless steel. I'm not too fond of the plastic ones. Sometimes if you set one of those down and it's hot, the plastic ones will melt. But anyway, those are my measuring spoons. These are for dry ingredients. A knife, a cake knife. This middle one is for slicing cakes and bread. And then of course a steel to take care of your knife, and a straight edge. You need a straight edge. Now this one just happens to be a ruler, but you can use most anything that is a straight edge. You're not necessarily measuring things, although sometimes we do, but you want that straight edge when you're going to cut a straight line. When we start doing croissants in Danish, you want to cut those in a straight line. You want your triangle for your croissant to be cut correctly. So we use that as a guide to help us get good straight lines. And for some of those lines, we'll use this, a pizza wheel. A pizza wheel is great for cutting rolled pastry dough, whether it's puff pastry or Danish or whatever it is. If we have to roll it out and cut it, a pizza wheel like that makes it so much easier. So here I have just a little paring knife. This is a really very sharp knife. This is actually my lame. Now the lame is the little thing that has a razor blade on the end of it that we use for slashing bread when we're doing breads. And I don't have one here. I'm gonna go try to find one but before I do my French bread, but that's what I'm gonna be using for slashing my bread. So here we have, this is a half sheet pan and parchment paper. So I showed you first the Silpat. You don't have to have a Silpat. A Silpat is really nice to have. But if you don't have a Silpat, I'm going to give you guys bundles of parchment paper. And we use parchment paper instead of the Silpat. In fact, commercial bakeries, that's what they use most of the time, is they'll go through a couple cases of Silpat in a month. Of parchment paper in a month. So this is an unbleached parchment paper. It works very well. It's very versatile. You have a very limited amount of it you're going to have. Please, 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 you see this? This is a half sheet pan. This is a full sheet of parchment. Don't just fold it over like that and then use it, because now that piece of parchment is done. You can't use it again. If you just cut it in half so it fits the pan, now you have two pieces and you can use it for two different things, and you can make your parchment paper last that much longer. This is a little thing. I love this thing. I've got a couple of these. This is what I use to stir my biscuits with. So if you're doing biscuits or scones or even muffins and you're worried about over mixing, this little handheld thing does great for the final mixing of doughs like that. Come over here, I've got, can't forget my scale. This is my digital scale. This is just a very simple digital scale. I think this scale cost me $29 online. And it's got grams, it's got ounces. You could do tare, which means if I'm going to weigh something, I put that on there, and then I hit this button called tare, and I hold it, and it resets it to 0. And now whatever I put in here, it's only measuring what I put in here, and it accounts automatically for your container. So a good little digital scale. You'll need a scale of some sort. Heat-proof spatula, a good whisk. I'll talk more later about different kinds of whisks. Pastry brushes, one or two. This one is something that I'll use when I brush on items, and this is a bigger brush that I use when I'm working with bread, and I use it to brush excess flour away from my work surface. Couple of thermometers. This is just a regular digital thermometer like we have at school, for what we call a meat thermometer, and it goes up to 220 degrees. And then this one is a candy thermometer or deep fry thermometer. And this one goes up, this is a cheap one. It only goes up to 400. So some of them go up higher. This is not a required item for this class. You can get by without one of these. I have, excuse me, various little third hands here. These are my favorite, these plastic bowl scrapers. These are so incredibly versatile. It used to be that the manufacturer's reps would come by and visit your bakery and they'd give you a couple of dozen of those because it had the logo on it of whatever they're trying to sell. But these are great. I love these. You can do a million things with them. The metal ones are also good to help scoop up things and to help support pastry dough when we're rolling it. And I guess last but not least are your trusty scissors. Scissors are indispensable in the bake shop. Yes, you will cut pastry when you are decorating cakes. Yes, you will be cutting marzipan for little flowers. We will use scissors when we're doing certain decorations, when we're doing breads. We use scissors when we have to cut our parchment paper. So scissors, have a good pair of scissors around. You always need a good pair of scissors. So that's it for now. I just wanted to go over kind of the basic lay of the land as far as the hand tools go. And as we get into different lessons, I'll be talking about specific tools that we use for specific tasks. And that's when I get into bottomless tart pans and cake pans with straight sides and those different things for those specialty things that we'll be talking about. So that's it for now. Have a good day. Enjoy the bake.